Well, it's Thursday, August the 22nd. Good morning, Nigerians. Welcome to the Morning Brief. We're live for you here in Lagos. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, the world. Wherever you are watching us right now, thank you for waking up. I'm Ann Nwawadu.
And thank you as well for being part of the program. And how are you coping? I know there's still no fuel in parts of the country, and our responsibility is to continue to tell the government that something has to be done, guys. Fuel scarcity is still a big deal. And we don't know. A lot of complaints. I listen to the radio before I get here while I'm driving, and Nigerians are really lamenting the impacts of some of the policies and some of the things that's been going on in the country, as well as some of the ways the government itself, they carry themselves as far as the policy is concerned. And so there's a lot of potpourri of issues to deal with. That's why we have the show, to make sure that your voices are heard as much as possible. So welcome again to the program.
We can tell you this for sure. That is big on our menu list this morning. It's what concerns you. It's what concerns all Nigerians, the fuel scarcity. Is that the new normal? We're very big on that this morning. But, you know, something to just distract me, because I try to look for you know, some happiness here and there. It's important to do that so you get some good mental health. And I just realized that the moon has been up in the sky for some time now. Last night it was in full glare. This morning it was there again, and it's cheery to know that we're towards the end of the month, Jeffrey, and you know what that means for a lot of Nigerians, and they pair that with the moon. But more importantly, it just made me realize that, you know what, it's important to always go out there and do what you have to do. When Ann was saying, thank you for waking up, it just hit me that maybe people don't appreciate you well enough. So on behalf of the Morning Brief, we're appreciating you for doing what you do, whether you're in the informal sector, and that's something we don't say a lot, sure. Whether you're in the informal sector, whether you're in the formal sector, or you don't have a job. Nigerians are definitely not lazy people. So I see the moon doing its thing from time to time, regardless what's going on under, around it. And I think of Nigerians always going out there to do their things. Will we hold government accountable? Oh, this is where we'll do that right here on Channels Television. But we want to appreciate you, Nigerians.
You know, Kayode, I thought I was the only one that noticed the moon. So while driving in this morning, I just came out of the estate and I looked up and I saw the moon, and it was like a breath of fresh air somehow.
Exactly.
That's how nature hits you, and you know that you should appreciate nature a lot. So for all of you, especially if you're drained mentally and in every other way, find nature. It just works magic, I tell you. Just find it and appreciate it, enjoy it, to just ease you off some of that stress. Maybe you should plan that this weekend. I know everything is difficult at the moment. You're trying to get fuel. Kayode was saying, oh, it's almost the end of the month, which means salary. But when you don't even have things to buy with the money that you're getting, and how do you get it? For example, fuel. So to all companies also who can actually get their workers to work from home, I think this is also the time to relieve them of some of that stress, tell them to stay home and do their work, because getting fuel is very difficult. I mean, except you have some magic or some fuel station at home or at your backyard. But in the meantime, just try to be considerate if you're an employer, as an employee, as an individual, as government. Of course, we'll definitely be holding you accountable every time on the show.
Well, they say sometimes Nigeria is an extreme sport, and someone was saying that I think they're just making a joke out of it. So where are you from? This, that, or the other. What work experience do you have? The person says, I'm Nigerian.
That's enough.
So living in the country is big enough, is a lot of responsibility as people, and the government must do the best they can. So I was just processing, just as you guys were talking. So I'm listening to myself and listening to everyone else to find out exactly. This is 2024. My father did bequeath this country to me, and this is the country bequeathed to me. I'm asking myself, what will I bequeath to my own children and my nephews and nieces and all of that? That is why we take the responsibility. Sometimes it's a very tough job to do. Every day you literally have to work on your mental health to be able to hold on and make sure that these people are held accountable to the best of your ability. And government, whether you like it or not, Nigerians will say whether you like it or yes, we will be on you until you get the right things done. And this is as simple as it gets. No one, absolutely no one, will ever be impressed with the effort you're putting in. Whether President Tinubu, the presidents before him, after him, no one is impressed by all the activities that you do until they see practical results with around their lives, around their families, around their communities, and around the country. So if you come around to say, we've done this, that, and the other, and we're not seeing the results, but we're seeing the efforts, you failed. It's as simple as that.
Oh, yes. So we hold government accountable, and of course, the people as well. By the way, there's this white bus I saw yesterday right in front of me.
White bus?
White bus.
Okay.
Right. I could only catch the Edo on top of the plate number. I didn't catch the number as much rather. And this driver, I don't know what inspiration or what spirit came upon him, stretched out his hand, and then he tossed something to the other part of the road. And I saw it was a banana peel.
Aren't you glad it's not plastic bottle? At least banana peel will rot. What are those who throw pet bottles and you're wondering, where did you come from? Are you even a human being?
Come on. I mean, that area was neat, was clean. And you didn't have any reason. I mean, there's space in your vehicle. Come on. So as much as we will hold government accountable, we also need to hold the citizens accountable ourselves. It's in the little things, actually. I was very hurt, not because I'm a taxpayer in Lagos, not because the area is neat, not just because of that, but because there was absolutely no need for that. And a lot of these people, a lot of us will go to other climes. I will not try that.
Can't even try it in
As much as a tiny speck of dirt, you will not try to drop it on the road. So if we want to see Nigeria work, we need to invest in it as individuals and, of course, hold government accountable, guys.
Talking about neatness, that was what you Rwanda today. If you go there, no one would ever throw anything on the ground because they had to actually, I think the individuals had to take it upon themselves to educate themselves and know that, okay, we cannot do this. So it's a mental thing sometimes. I don't know if we don't think, I think if we take extra time to think about the effect of these things on our environment as individuals, will begin to make a difference. Rwanda today, if you walk through, if you throw anything, you'll be held accountable somehow because everywhere is clean and you don't know when to dirty it. I think that is what we should start doing as a country, as individuals, and as clean people, neat people.
Yeah. So next time, I'll pull the car over and say, stop there. The office of a citizen of the Federal Republic by the order.
And just make sure it's not a soldier.
Well, even if you're a soldier, at that point, you're doing something wrong.
I'm speaking as a Nigerian, not in the ideal scenario.
Jeffrey, you know what? Let's give you news you can use this morning. What do we have for you? Well, we asked that question. Is petrol scarcity the new normal for us? Well, weeks of petrol scarcity, you can see the long queues. That is not traffic. That is fuel queue. And of course, the price hikes have taken their toll on Nigerians who are wondering if this is the new normal. NNPC Limited again blames rainfall, thunderstorm, the mother-daughter vessel relationship for this scarcity. But is this enough? Well, more importantly, when will this be over? That's the question we're asking this morning as we continue troubleshooting this issue.
All right. Let's talk health now. What is the state of the hospitals closest to you with the renewed vigor by the Ministry of Health and the green light of financial autonomy to local governments? Well, we talk and we walk through what you should expect in the coming days at the health centers and the plans for universal health coverage in the country.
We will not just be focusing in the health sector. The judiciary makes it on our list of the road ahead of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Of course, all eyes on the judiciary with the impending emergence of a new Chief Justice in person of Justice Kudirat Kekerekun as CJN Olukadarola bows out. What is the work before her and what are the expectations of Nigerians? If you never thought of the judiciary or it never concerns you, you might want to think again because that is a very important arm of government. It can make or mar democracy. So join us as we talk about the job ahead of the Honorable Justice.
Absolutely. Whether you like it or not, as Nigeria say, you go touch everybody. You think you are not the one in court, but one way or the other, what happens in court and out of a court would always impact you. So what we're going to do this morning as well is track all of your reactions and the talking points really across social media. So keep the messages coming in and comments coming in. It's a democracy, okay? What is democracy without you? What is our show without you? So hashtag CTV Morning Brief or, of course, WhatsApp. Yeah, that's the fastest way to reach Anne at this point. So head over to WhatsApp right now, send in your questions, comments. If you've got videos, send it to us. Let us show the world what is happening around you.
Kaide, you'd be shocked the amount of people that are just going to call that number right now. Because they said they'll reach me.
It's for the people, okay?
So what are you feeling like?
I love the people. Please send your messages.
People love you too.
So at the end of the day, if you have your thoughts on the new CJ and that has been recommended, and of course all the processing has to follow through, bring it on. She's the second female at the end of the day. She's gone through the ranks, literally. True. I think from magistrate court all the way, so the expectations are quite high. Bring it on. WhatsApp, X, write it to amplify your voice.
And tell us your story also about fuel scarcity and how you've been getting it, if you had to stay hours on the road or you just have some fuel station behind in your backyard. Maybe we'll all just show up somehow.
There you go. So let's do this now, shall we? We have top stories for you in just a few seconds. These are the stories that will shape the conversation right here on the show. Stay with us right here on The Morning Brief. The top stories at this hour: the death toll from the heavy floods in Jigawa State has risen to 28, with over 40,000 people affected. Governor Umar Namadi confirmed this while speaking to members of the House Committee on Ecological Fund at the State Government House in Dutse. Well, according to him, over 8,000 people are now living in temporary internally displaced persons camps across the state.
Water has taken over the market and our homes. We are in a very bad situation and we have lost a lot.
And
looking at the plot, and that is another area that we say we must address it. We know it is perennial in most of the states, but we want to see how come we can come in and provide solution to it.
Let's now bring you some more. President Bola Tinubu has condoled with the people of Jigawa State over the recent flooding that has led to the loss of lives and displacement of many citizens. In a statement by the Special Advisor on Media, Ajuri Ngalale, the president also commiserated with the bereaved families and victims of the flooding, which has impacted about 14 local government areas and many households. President Tinubu emphasized that the recurrent environmental disasters underscore the urgency to address climate change and its perils, as well as remove man-made elements to the challenge. Also, President Bola Tinubu has directed the reconstruction of the Waga Bridge destroyed by floodwater in Madagali local government area of Adamawa State. Now, this disclosure was made by the Managing Director of the Northeast Development Commission, Mohammed Al-Khali Goni, during an on-the-spot visit to the collapsed bridge, which has cut off communities affected by insurgency in Madagali local government area. Speaking of affected communities, the federal government says it is pursuing avenues to ensure farmers have access to sustainable agricultural insurance in line with the National Agricultural Growth Scheme, Agro-Pocket, which will cover challenges faced by farmers in cases of flooding, drought, pests, damage to properties by windstorm, and others. The Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Aliyu Abdullahi, met with heads of insurance organizations and farm associations at a workshop in Abuja to deliberate on how to effectively carry out this initiative.
Agricultural Growth Scheme Agro-Pocket project is designed as a policy project to support food security in Nigeria. And we started last year dry season, where we had production of wheat. And the success we recorded, upon evaluation, we realized that there is an element that is missing, which is insurance or risk management. So what we are doing here today is, having discussed with all the critical stakeholders, we constituted a committee to develop a national agricultural insurance scheme under this program. The whole idea here is that we have farmers in various locations who will participate. What if they suffer crop loss? How do you attend to that issue? So this insurance program is designed to help them get something to at least recoup the losses that they may suffer.
And more stories. The federal government has approved an upward review of the fees for the procurement of Nigerian passports with effect from September the 1st. A statement by the spokesman of the Nigeria Immigration Service, DCI Kenneth Udo, says the increment is a part of the government's effort to maintain the quality and integrity of the Nigerian standard passport. The statement adds that based on the review, a 32-page passport booklet with 5-year validity, previously charged at 35,000 naira, will now be 50,000 naira only, while a 64-page passport booklet with 10-year validity, which was 70,000 naira, will be 100,000 naira. The statement adds that the fees remain unchanged for Nigerians in the diaspora. And on to politics. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has inaugurated 2 committees to reconcile aggrieved party members as well as discipline erring members. Addressing members of committees at the PDP headquarters in Abuja, the acting national chairman, Mr. Umar Damagum, urged the committees to work hard to rejuvenate the party, as the 26-member disciplinary committee is headed by Mr. Tommy Kimi, while the former governor of Osho State, Mr. Alagsoyo Inola, heads the reconciliatory committee.
Almost 40,000 people that are affected as at today. We have almost 8,000 people in IDPs, in different IDP camps as at today. The farmland washed away, and these things have affected over 135 communities. We have lost about 28.
Well, apologies for that mix-up. Let's bring you other stories now. And in reaction to some of the issues raised within the PDP about the membership of the FCT minister, Mr. Nyesom Wike, well, he has said that nobody can plot to bring him down, and he will also not subject himself to persons entrusted in terminating his political career. Mr. Wike made this remark during a media chat in his office while reacting to the comment by some members of the People's Democratic Party calling for his expulsion. He also alleges that there is no neutrality in the way the party's Board of Trustees handles issues, and as such, the party should be careful in order not to run into major crisis.
Nothing Chief Edwin Clark or the other statesman have not said, but I said, I will never, I will not reply to anything. If there's anybody who has contributed to the growth of PDP, as far as today, is me. So when I read it, they should investigate me. Investment for what? I don't want to wait for any fight. I will stay there. Where? I will fight it out.
In the PDP?
Yes. Who am I going to run for? The vampires?
And to business news, the central bank has affirmed that business enterprises in the country are optimistic there will be improvement in the economy in the next 3 to 6 months, starting from September. According to its Business Expectation Survey report for July, which was released yesterday, the CBN says this optimism, which is based on a survey from 1,600 business enterprises nationwide operating in the industry, services, and agriculture sectors, is largely driven by hopes in the agriculture sector. The financial market regulators report also identified the agriculture sector as having the highest employment prospect, followed by the industry and services sectors. And out of the country, divers searching the wreckage of a super yacht which sank off the coast of Sicily on Monday have found the bodies of 5 of the 6 missing passengers and recovered 4 of them to shore. The Italian Coast Guard has not formally identified the bodies, which have been brought up from the wreck of the basin, but the rescuers have spent days searching for 4 Britons and 2 Americans. These include Mike Lynch, the UK tech entrepreneur whose wife owns the basin yacht, his daughter Anna Lynch, the chairman of Morgan Stanley Bank International, Jonathan Bloomer, and his wife, Judy Bloomer. And in sports news, Arsenal may have re-entered the race to sign Victor Osimhen from Napoli before the summer transfer window closes, and that's according to reports in Italy. Osimhen's club future has been a saga drawn out across the summer. Having asked to leave Naples, Paris Saint-Germain led the race to sign the Nigerian international, only to end talks last month, unwilling to meet Napoli's asking price. Injury to Gonzalo Ramos at the weekend sparked brief suggestions they could return for the striker, but the French champions have decided against pursuing a deal at this stage. And while Chelsea are eager to sign the Napoli star, reports in Italy suggest the Blues could now face renewed competition from Arsenal. We'll see how that plays out for Victor Osimhen. We always wish him the very best. But let's take a look at what you're saying about the major stories making the rounds. Of course, Anne joins me to walk through the very interesting streets of X. Anne.
You know, I like the part you said, very interesting.
Oh, yes.
Street of X, because it looks like X is where you can just lay it all. That's it. And no one is judging you. It's just there. What you think is what we get. But thank you so much for sending in all your comments, and we will be taking them on trending right now. And the first one is about the Nigerian Navy uncovering massive illegal oil refining in Rivers State and the plan to destroy. And this is not the first time. I mean, so many times we've heard about destruction of these illegal refineries, as they call it, in that part of the Niger Delta. And this one is coming from Alexim 2, who says that Nigeria refinery is not working. Well, Nigeria's refinery is not working. Why destroying these ones? Allow these people to operate. They collect tax from them. Regulation agency sure make their refined fuel standard, and this will reduce unemployment, reduce forex demand for fuel importation.
Interesting that the next user, Ike, reiterates or re-echoes those sentiments, saying a progressive government that really needs to develop will have called the illegal refiners to a meeting and look for ways of empowering them for local content. I know this has been said time and again, and you just wonder, so what is wrong? They say it's not regulated. Fine. Call them to the table. Tell them this is the quality we need in whatever derivative you're churning out, and then let's work towards it. As the previous user said, and the refineries are not working.
They're not working.
I know
so
NNPC Limited will say, no, Port Harcourt is producing. But for Nigerians, until they see the petrol,
exactly,
they don't think the refineries are working.
So for these ones who are coming up with some solution, I don't know how, but I think they can come in between. They can meet in the middle, and I don't know, because sometimes you watch movies and you see hackers who have been illegally hacking, and then some big organization take them in and say, how did you do this? Can you bring it? So it now becomes the legal way. I think we can all talk about this and come to the middle. All right, Raymond Namdi says that since Nigeria's government cannot refine its petroleum products, the private sector stepped in, and he put the laugh emoji. We know what that sarcasm means.
Private sector. You know, we talked about this yesterday, the black marketers as well, who are selling petrol. They may not be a part of Petron, which is a retail owners association, but they are retailing in some sense because there is a need on ground. People need to get petrol, and if the filling stations are not selling, they turn to the ones who have. And it looks like everybody's on the same WhatsApp group this morning on this matter. Ikechukwu has this to say: if the illegal refinery will work, then I see no reason why it should be destroyed, since the legal one has stopped working.
All right, let's hear from CMET tomorrow. He says, why can't Nigerian government convert these so-called illegal refineries to government-owned plants and upgrade them to start producing for Nigeria and Nigerians?
So that's on the one hand, definitely a big talking point for us on the show this morning, and we'll be running these issues by someone who's deep in that sector. But let's just show you some images from, well, that illegal refinery said to have been uncovered, and they put some of the, you know, the output at quite a number, really. So there you have it. Okay, so quite interesting scenes. By the way, if you've never been to where oil is being explored, refined, transported, this gives you a peek into the dirt that is engaged in before you get all of those, million crude per day, or million barrels per day rather, and then the forex that the Nigerian needs. But let's move on to yet another talking point this morning, and it's about a fine by NDPC. That's the Data Protection Agency of the federal government, a fine on one of the commercial banks in Nigeria, 555.8 million naira fine. And varying, angles to this. Some say, well, let us know deeply what exactly happened. Give us full disclosure. What exactly was breached? How did it affect, the consumer or the customers in this case? But take a look at what Safety Cabal says, because we need to ensure that our systems and regulators do their work. They can appeal it or negotiate the fine.
All right. This is coming from Teta X, who says that the fine imposed on Fidelity Bank by the National Data Protection Commission underscores the serious commitment to enforcing data protection regulations.
Emmanuel is next, saying that's very correct indeed, as I will definitely send messages to other banks likely engaged in infractions as well.
And Vector Link says that, will this money be shared for the customers whose data were breached, or will it go to the federal government?
It's a very valid question.
Earlier last week, we were talking about another financial institution that had the news, even though they came out to debunk that news and deny that nothing of such ever happened, where hackers had to get into and get some data from customers, but they said that never happened. But then it begins to get the question asked about how these financial institutions handle data and how they take cybersecurity very seriously in their banks, investing in technology enough to keep everyone safe. Because when data gets out there, it becomes a very huge problem, sometimes irreversible at many moments.
Well, the thing is, they can also appeal this if they have proof or evidence that, well, we've done the right thing, then they can always appeal, and we'll see how this plays out. But this next talking point is not palatable at all. If there's anything, we know that Nigerians don't joke with certificates and education. You can find Nigerians in literally every institution across the world trying to get a certificate, either master's, MBA, PhD, and the rest. So it's quite curious when you hear that Uganda, Kenya have written to JAMB to demand student verification. But again, maybe that makes sense. The first user, De King Sport, says this is a good development in education sector. Now, this is how this user sees it. A collaboration. Says, I love the collaboration. I'm sure that's what you wanted to say. So this user sees it more as a collaboration.
A lot of times we've talked about Africa and how it's not as united as we want it to be. Sometimes you just want to travel to the next African country and you see the ticket price and you're asking yourself, am I going to Canada? Am I going to America? Why is it so expensive? Right. Even the trade, ease of doing business in both all countries around the AU, you begin to ask so many questions. So I guess this is a very good collaboration, as this user has said. But the next one comes from Abdul Moniye, who says that this is a normal procedure. Nigeria universities do verify WAEC results you claim to have. So let's not politicize this at all. Even if you are applying for higher degree admission, your certificate will be verified from the school you are claimed to have graduated from.
There you go. So it's good that this is being received in good faith. Yes. Adetola is next, saying it's a normal thing that should be done. You don't expect them not to verify credentials that were issued outside their space. So of course you'd expect that any of the students coming from those countries to Nigeria would also have their results verified from their respective schools, whether it's in Uganda, Kenya. That should be the norm.
All right, nobody trusts our certificate at all. They must confirm, if not true, first, because
it's standard practice.
Things that go, it's standard practice.
Yeah.
If you go to the UK or anywhere else, you have to verify you actually went to the school, and there's transcript and there's every other thing before you actually get admission. So I think this is also a good development in Africa if we want to grow as a continent.
Indeed. So that's as much we can take at this point, but keep your messages coming in. #CTV Morning Brief. We're starting off with a very thorny issue. Is this going to be our new normal? I know a lot of people are saying I reject it. All of the fuel scarcity, price hike, this is not what we deserve as Nigeria. So we're starting off from the queues this morning. So stay with us right here on the Morning Brief, and don't forget to send your videos and thoughts in on the fuel scarcity. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's now time to talk about fuel scarcity. We've been asking the question, is this our new normal? Well, the people within that space, the players in that space are here to talk to us about what exactly is going on. We're being joined in the program from our Abuja studio by the National Public Relations Officer of IPMAN, that is the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Chief Ukadike Chinedu. Chief Chinedu, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
So the last time we had the depot chairman, one of the very opening statements he made, that's Mr. Shinamo, he said there's no supply anywhere. Has that changed?
There is improvement recently. NNPCL have started supplying petroleum products to marketers. I know there was a little bit thrift in terms of the supply chain, and I think they have started receiving products recently, and distribution have started. I'm very much abreast with the situation of things, and I also believe with the collaboration between independent petroleum marketers and NNDPR and NNPCL, products will be made available as quickly as possible, because the national president insisted that we must work in concert with the dictates of the authority to ensure that there is a prompt distribution of petroleum products nationwide.
So, Chief Ukadike, on this particular one, you said there was a little thrift. I've forgotten the word you used now, but Nigerians don't see it that way. Whatever is going on with the NNPCL and the distribution channel and everybody involved in that ecosystem is putting lives at risk on one hand, is making life difficult on the other hand, coupled with the fact that we're already dealing with a very harsh economic environment. So the other, one of your members had mentioned the fact that part of the problem, besides what the NNPC has explained as a mother-daughter vessel issue and logistics and weather and all of that, is the fact that the sharing formula is also a problem. Usually, we understand that independent marketers were given quite a bit of shares so that things like this can be managed when there's a shortfall. But like the formula changed, what do you have to say in terms of that particular sharing formula, and do you think it should be reviewed? And what exactly is it from your own end?
It's very pertinent to note at this particular point in time that the deregulation policy and the removal of scarcity, independent petroleum marketers were now bundled into an NNPCL portal. It is via an NNPCL portal that we can be able to, as the only source of our petroleum products, and other DAPMAN members that can be able to source petroleum products. And you imagine over 17,000 independent petroleum marketers, filling stations and licensed marketers, sourcing petroleum products from one particular source. So it becomes very, very cumbersome. Although they have been coping, trying to meet up with our demand. But because of this deregulation policy, we also have been allowed to source our petroleum product and also import petroleum products for our members. Most of our members who have tried to ensure that they can be able to import petroleum products could not be able to continue because of forest problem, return on investment, repatriating their funds, and some other logistics problem that they cannot be able to continue. So this issue we are now left in the hands of NNPCL to continue to give independent marketers petroleum products. So once we don't get product from NNPCL, that means there's no product for independent marketers. So, and we are now asked to source petroleum products by ourselves, and anywhere we can be able to buy petroleum products and we can be able to sell. And if you look at this country, it is very, very clear that one of the strategic stakeholders in terms of distribution chain in Nigeria is independent marketers. There is no nooks and crannies of this country that you won't find an independent. So it's a very, very strategic player once it comes to oil and gas distribution in the downstream sector. And it's not been neglected. So holistically, I think federal government should have looked at this strategic stakeholders and be able to fashion out something that can also enable them to be in the same path with NNPCL. NNPCL is a limited liability company, like most of the independent marketers. And, you know, for us who are the independent marketers to be dependent on NNPCL and some other time owners to be able to get our petroleum product, it has given the petroleum, the petroleum product part tier of distribution. Where now we will now wait if NNPCL did not sneeze, we cannot be able to get product. And we don't even have the facility to distribute this petroleum product nationwide. Right. There is nowhere in this country you cannot find an independent marketer. There is no nooks and crannies of this country you cannot be able to see or meet an independent marketer within the 1 kilometer to 2 kilometer radius. So it became very, very, cumbersome. NNPC to be able to meet up with our demand because they also have their own retail outlets to service. They have to service their own retail outlet before they now look at the independent marketers. So the issue of sharing ratio does not arise because NNPC has its primary objective of taking care of their retail outlets. If they don't take care of the retail outlets, if they don't take care of independent marketers, they are also in the same competition with them. So there's a very big problem here. All right. Able to assess for us?
Yeah, Chief Chinedu, I like the part where you said the challenge about NNPC being the sole importer of fuel. It's becoming a very big problem, but also as the person closest or the body closest to the end users who actually needs this fuel, as Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria are the closest people, of course, to us who need this fuel every day. And talking about issues around boosting local fuel refining capacity in this country, we've seen a lot of times where authorities are destroying illegal refineries, as they term it. Do you think that this should be the action in terms of people, especially these people who are the ones producing this thing, who can refine it, since our refineries, 4 refineries are not working, and even the one that wants to come and work now, the Dangote refinery, is being stifled in some ways. So what do you think should be the next step? Is destroying illegal refineries the right way to go?
Well, on that, government has also mapped out plans for modular refineries. And those modular refineries, some of them are working, and there's also frustrations. You know, when you look at an economic environment, you must give the investors an opportunity to be able to come in both in policy, both in technicality, both in aid, both in training, anything that will help those that are in that industry to be able to function. Even if you are bringing in foreign partners, independent marketers also want to bring in foreign partners to be able to collaborate with us, to be able to establish modular refinery. It's quite unfortunate that even those who have modular refineries, like Watersmith and all the rest of them, they are all crying for crude. And they are not seen in the hands of the illegal refinery, those that used to produce bonfire. Because it's very, very difficult for government to be able to look at this issue. There's a lot of revenue. Government is losing a lot of revenue. So the pipeline feast most of these young men now find it very, very easy to be able to go and puncture the pipeline and be able to scoop some crude oil and cook it locally and put it into the market. But the government has also established modular refineries for investors to come in. So the issue here is, how does this local refineries get their crude? That's number one. Without hitches, like some of these local refineries, for some time now, they keep on complaining when we go and load from them. They say they have not received crude. They are trying to see how they can be able to source crude. They are buying crude in dollars. They are always selling the diesel into what the importers are selling it. So if you are buying diesel at 1,700, 1,400 naira, and those who are importing the diesel are also selling diesel at 1,400, what is the difference there? So it's only when Dangote came in and that Dangote looked at it and okay, brought diesel to 1,002, Some of them also shifted grant to 1,200 naira, from 1,200 to 950, from 950 to 980. Government should give access to free economy. Allow people to, the competitors to play. Allow them to have access to crude. I also thank Mr. President for this wonderful gesture of giving them crude only
in Naira.
In Naira. But
right.
the most important thing, there must be total implementation.
Indeed, and that's what we look to see in the coming days. You said earlier on that all the players have been asked to work together, and that's perhaps indicative of perhaps people working in silos or at loggerheads in this sector. The goal is that we don't go back to the past. You know, fraudulent subsidies said to have been paid, sometimes for nothing, brought in. In fact, fuel scarcity as well, and all of the corruption that has been attributed to that sector. So while all of that is playing out, at the heart of it is the need to get fuel to Nigerians. It's as simple as that. Nigerians should drive into filling stations and buy petrol. Either they have a jerry can, which, by the way, they want to feed their generating set or their machine at home, or for their vehicles. So when you said that this has been resolved and it's going to be resolved as soon as possible, we heard behind the scenes that by Wednesday, which is yesterday, things will ease, but we've not seen the easing yet. So can you give us the assurance, and what kind of assurance in terms of time frame would you give us that this will be resolved as far as you people are working together?
Well, independent marketers, after our last meeting, there was summoned by our president, Alhaji Abubakar Megandi, the national president of IPMAN. We have all resolved that all marketers should open their filling stations. Where there is security, should sell 24 hours. Where there is no security, should sell at the normal official time. We are ready to receive products from NNPCL. We're also ready to buy products from DAPMAN members. Our trucks are on the road, you know. But what I'm trying to make it very, very clear here is that we are asking the federal government to be able to look into the issue of allocation of petroleum products to independent petroleum marketers holistically, so that it will be able to enable us distribute this petroleum product directly to our members and monitor them. We are the people that breaks the buck. We are the people that the promoters meet. We are the people that are in the filling stations selling this fuel to people. Right. And we can be able to communicate with them.
Pardon me, let me quickly come in here, if you can hear me. Are you saying, in essence, if you say that this sharing formula needs to be addressed, are you saying that NNPC Limited still has supply, but that supply is not coming to IPMAN, rather it is going elsewhere, which is why you want this formula to be changed? Is that what you're saying, that at least there's some supply with NNPC Limited?
Yes, affirmatively. Affirmatively, I'm saying that before NNPC took over, we are having our supply chain 60-40. Independent marketers have the number of petroleum products more, because our marketers are numerous, our marketers are bigger, our presence are everywhere. So the company that's given is inadequate. So the fuel stations have closed. You can say to that. What we are having now today is disparity in prices, because we cannot be able to adequately have petroleum products. That is why most of our members now go and sell petroleum products elsewhere. But if we have petroleum products located to us, the way it's supposed to be allocated to us, maybe in the ratio of product that is being imported into this country, in the ratio of 64, we can be able to distribute faster. And I want to reassure you that once that is done, the issue of this scarcity will be raised completely. Because we are ready to, so we have the best filling stations in Nigeria. So we are under NNPC portal. If they give us the allocation, maybe 10 out of whatever millions of petroleum products they receive, we will wait until we'll be able to receive, but we still sell those products. The issue of treating this product, sending to DAPMAN members, I don't say they should not send to DAPMAN members, but they should send to DAPMAN members in concert with the independent marketers. You can be able to go to that place
All right, Chief.
Who has this product?
Your thoughts are quite insightful. So we hope that this will be resolved. But this sounds like you're alleging some form of pseudo-institutional monopoly in cahoots with Dapman. But of course, at some point, we'll get Dapman to talk about this as well. But we must thank you for coming on the program. The National Public Relations Officer of IPMAN, Chief Okadike Chinedu. Thank you for coming on the program. We'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll zoom our attention, or we'll focus our attention on the health sector. Join us again.
Let's talk about the all-important health sector. Well, literally all sectors are important, right? If you're not buying petrol for your car's health, you're going to the hospital or trying to maintain your health by eating right. But the health sector in Nigeria is clearly one that needs a lot of investment, a lot of attention. We can talk about JAPA all day. We can talk about the equipment remuneration all day. We can talk about the primary healthcare sector all day, not to talk of secondary and tertiary. This morning, let's try to pick some of the important issues in this sector in terms of universal health care coverage, which means that everybody should have some semblance of health care accessible to them in terms of the cost and, of course, proximity. We have joining us the Director, Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, Federal Minister of Health, Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed, joins us virtually on the program this morning to walk through this all-important conversation. Dr. Mohammed, you're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, there's a lot of talk about petrol, and rightly so, and that concerns the health of the economy, of our vehicles, generating set and all. But let's talk about our health for a moment. And there's been this back and forth, and I'd like us to start from there as to, so what happens to the primary health care facilities across the country? With the financial autonomy granted to local government, there's a primary healthcare development authority, and there are different levels across states as well that are responsible for primary healthcare. So before we talk about access and the cost, I think it's important to talk about what to expect now in terms of primary healthcare, which is the one closest to the people. You are in charge of at least the funding of this area. So from your side, how do you expect the implementation to go, particularly for the primary healthcare centers?
Okay, thank you very much. And good morning, Nigerians. So regarding the state of primary healthcare in the country, we have a very good understanding between the national and the state governments about how primary healthcare should be operated. The National Health Act provides that there will be a national body that comprises of both the federal government and the state government to operate the health system in the country. And in the primary healthcare strategy also, we have agreed with the states that the primary healthcare will be provided under our roof, meaning that everyone has his own responsibility. The federal government has a responsibility, the state government has a responsibility, and the local government with the current autonomy now has a responsibility and what they need to do. We cannot continue to have a fragmented health system where states will go in different direction, local governments will go in different direction, and the federal government also trying to steer in another direction. It has to be coordinated, it has to be one approach, and there has to be that understanding. And so far, under the leadership of the coordinating Minister of Health, we have managed to build on that strategy. He's in constant discussion with the governors and even the association of the local government to make sure that that understanding and that strategy is sustained, because that is the only way to have a coordinated approach that will be able to succeed in delivering effective primary health care in the country.
All All right, Dr. Mohammed, for context, I know that this fund was established under Section 11 of the National Health Act, which means that the fund is strictly for primary health care centers. And we know how important it is to improve that sector because people who are affected are those at the grassroots. But now permit me to say how these funds, 1% will be coming from the federal government, another percentage will be coming from international donor partners, another one will be coming from the private sector, which means a lot of fund coming into this purse to fund these primary healthcare centers. So the question will now be, how will these be implemented? How will the money be used to make sure that the goal is achieved? And of course, accountability and so many other issues around how this fund will be used. I know that you said there are gateways, which means there are already platforms set. So explain to us how this will be implemented and work.
Okay, so over the years, I think stakeholders in the health sector realized that there is a huge burden in Nigeria, in the health sector in Nigeria, as reflected by our maternal mortality, infant mortality, and under 5 mortality. These are the most important variables of measurement that show the health of the population. And the health sectors have pushed and worked towards having a dedicated fund that will serve as special intervention to improve the delivery of primary healthcare. And as you rightly mentioned, the Act was passed. Section 11 provides that the federal government will provide at least 1% of the Consolidated Revenue Fund, which will be used for this purpose to make sure that the primary healthcare centers are in a good position to provide service, to make sure that we have the required cadre of health staff that will deliver these services, and to ensure that vulnerable population are enrolled onto the health insurance to have access to health services with very minimal or no out-of-pocket expenses. So the fund also has a provision that donors can also provide their funds, and also private sector can also provide their funds within this framework. And this fund is meant to be administered through 4 gateways, like you mentioned. These are agencies of government that statutorily provide certain functions. The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, we know, is the coordinating authority, is the regulatory authority, is the one providing oversight on the national primary healthcare, the primary healthcare system in the country. They work very closely with the state government, who have established their own agencies, and also work directly with these health facilities to build their capacity, identify their challenges, and try to solve them. The second gateway is the National Health Insurance Agency, which really has the statutory function also to ensure that all Nigerians are covered by health insurance, meaning that Nigerians have access to health services at a very minimal resources. The third gateway is the emergency medical treatment. This is a committee that is under the chairmanship of a distinguished physician that also looks at medical emergencies. For example, we know one of the problems that responsible for maternal mortality is what is called the second delay. That is the delay after you made the decision to go to the hospital before you reach the hospital. So you need to fast track and also to facilitate access by providing transport and also engaging the community to ensure that a pregnant woman that needs to get to a hospital actually gets to that. So the emergency medical treatment provides this specialized service, the ambulance system, and working with the different categories of transport workers to make sure that this is divided. The last one is the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, which also has the statutory function for epidemic preparedness and response in the country. And a portion of that fund is also meant for them to react during epidemics. So in terms of the proportion of the funds, what we do at the BHCPF under the Coordinating Minister of Health is to distribute these funds. 45% goes to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, 48% 0.75 goes to the National Health Insurance Agency, 1.25 goes to the Nigeria Centers for Disease Control, and 5% of the funds goes to the emergency medical treatment. Now, these responses are coordinated under what is called the Ministerial Oversight Committee and is chaired by the Honorable Minister of Health, and it has other stakeholders.
All right, Doctor, laudable ideas. But at the end of the day, efficiency and effectiveness is how we measure. So when I hear things like this, as brilliant as they sound, maybe they put a chorus across to my village and know whether this trickles down. Because there are 2 PHCs. If we use the PHCs, the primary healthcare urban PHCs, which have alternative to private hospital, but the one that has to do with literal survival, because there's little or no alternative, is the rural PHC. So before we begin to talk about how great this is and how distribution will be, can you give us maybe an empirical data of how it has been in terms of result that informed what is going on now?
Okay, so, you know, the fund, the act was passed in 2014. The funds become accessible from 2019 onwards. And the fund has been what I'll call steady, and we have seen an increase in the funds that are being made available. So these funds through the agencies are now utilized to first assess the primary healthcare facilities and then onboard them. And then they get accredited by NHIA. And then we now recruit vulnerable population who will now access services in these facilities. So back to your question, the empirical data is that the number of facilities have steadily increased, and the laudable idea of having 1 PHC per ward in this country has been achieved, I will say. We currently have about 8,300 primary healthcare facilities, which means 1 almost in every ward of the country is covered. And these facilities, some of them are not in very good shape, and therefore these funds are utilized to improve, you know, the structure, provide the infrastructure, ensure that they have water, electricity, and also funds are made available to the facility itself to make decision in terms of buying the drugs that they need, in terms of using some money for fueling, money for transportation, and a lot of that. So we have classified the facilities into actually 3. You have those that just are called primary healthcare facilities, but they do not have the required services. You know, they do not have the right infrastructure, they do not have the right human resources, and they do not have the right equipment, you know, to carry on with the services. These kind of facilities, you know, some of them, you know, have been enrolled so that we can move them forward. The second one are the ones that have some level of, what will I say, efficiency. Maybe they have skilled birth attendants, up to 3 or 4. And then they also have dedicated staff, but maybe they don't provide 24-hour services. These are also enrolled on the BHCPF. But our target is to make sure that all the facilities reach a level that is called L2. In L2, you know, they have about more than 5 skilled birth attendants that can attend to patients that come anytime. They provide 24-hour service. And also they likely have like an accommodation, you know, for the staff so that they can attend to pregnant women, you know, in night. In terms of rural coverage, I'll say that it is widely spread. Like I told you, we have 1 facility now, almost 1 facility in every political ward in the country.
Right. So the challenge is really deep, and I'm glad we're talking about the rural areas. You know, there's some centers that are decorated, painted, and pictures are taken, and, you know, people go to town with, oh, the government is doing great things. But some of those centers, when you go inside, you realize they don't even have equipment. They don't have beds and all of that, but people are big on just the outside. Talk more of what happens in rural areas. Some of them don't even have water. I know there's just recently there was some sort of award given to, I think, Adamawa State for providing water, something that basic. So you can imagine that this is a challenge, something as simple as providing water. for primary health care centers in the country. So when you say that the goal is to get them to L2, I'd like you to give us a time frame. Again, that is what matters to a lot of people, because Nigerians can easily think now of the state of their primary health care centers, either in their village or the one closest to them, and wonder, when will this L2 thing get to us? So speak to us, time frame. How soon will this happen and be a reality, not just on the outside, on the inside, and in terms of manpower, as you said? How soon?
So, let me provide you with a little context. The Honorable Coordinating Minister of Health has focused his attention largely on reducing these very important and poor health indicators: maternal mortality, infant mortality, and under 5 mortality. These statistics have not changed in the last 20 years. And like you mentioned about the issue of fuel, or about the economy of a nation, the bottom line for population health is really these indices. No matter how good your hospital is, no matter how many specialists you have, no matter how advanced your country is, if your maternal mortality is very poor, if your infant mortality is very poor, and if your under 5 mortality and immunization coverage is very poor, health-wise, your population is not healthy. And Nigeria has been in the bad light globally, in terms of these indices. Therefore, what the minister did was to really galvanize the needed support to ensure that the state governors are enrolled, to make sure that the local governments are also on board. And he had this meeting, several meetings with the state governments. They have signed a compact that will ensure that we're all moving in one direction, to make sure that everyone is having one plan, we're having one framework, and we're having one reporting system. That is very critical for us to address these issues of maternal mortality, so that funds will be directed where they are necessary. In addition to that, the Honorable Minister of Health also has initiated a very strategic approach, which is quite laudable, something that has not happened in many years, which is to have all sectors, including the donors and private sector, to work in the same direction under what is called the sector-wide approach, which means that donors cannot, in the past, donors will just go to state, sign an agreement, and then start implementing their programs. Really, some of the programs not talking to each other, and the state governments also receive funds and they carry out their own function. But now we are all galvanizing action to make sure that we work with one plan. As I'm talking to you now, all the states are working hard to submit what is called an annual operational plan. And it's based on that BHCPF and other resources will now be used to fund what are their deficiencies. So in that direction, I would say that yes, this is a very laudable idea, like you mentioned, and we're really working towards having a harmonized and uniform implementation process.
All right, Dr. Mohammed, before we let you go, I know that this somehow ties to the SDG 3 and SDG 10, which is about health and well-being and, of course, reduced inequalities, which means also that it's not just about the structure, it is about the personnel, those who will be working in these primary centers. Some of these funds that have been said will be gotten from the federal government, from private donors, and, of course, the private sector and international donors. Will some of that fund be channeled into training the personnel who will be the ones working in these primary health centers? We know how it has been over the years, where they don't even take their job seriously, and sometimes even when they do not have equipment or well-trained staff. How would you work to ensure that personnel becomes priority in this regard?
Well, absolutely. I mean, human resources for health, or human resources for primary health care, is very important, and in fact, it's one of the top items that is being addressed by this fund. We don't only provide funds for training. The National Primary Health Care Development Agency has developed its own human resource plan to ensure that all primary health care centers covered by the by the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund have adequate and trained staff. So they also recruit staff based on ad hoc basis, pending when the time, maybe the state governments or the local government can now hire permanent staff to continue to deliver that service. So as you mentioned also, there is a huge shift in terms of what the federal government can provide and what the state government can also provide. For them to access this fund, for the state government or local government to access this fund, they have to provide what is called 25% counterpart funding. So whatever fund is going to be sent to them, they have to make that available. I must admit that this has not been very regular, but henceforth the minister has determined that we will continue, with this, because it is a provision of the Act that the state governments have to provide that counterpart funding. And most of that counterpart funding will go into training, retraining, and also hiring of human resource for health to achieve the primary healthcare objective.
All right, you didn't quite answer my question on the time frame. They say goals are meant to be SMART, so specific, measurable, and then there's a time frame, they're time bound. So what is a target in terms of time frame to achieve L2 as we wind down quickly?
So, Shem, I may not be able to give you an exact timeline because we work on different trajectories. While some states like Lagos have advanced, and most of the facilities in Lagos State are in L2, there are many other states that the health facilities are not even in L1. So we have to work, and while some states require little or no support, most of the states require a direct intervention. They need technical assistance. They need to work hand in hand with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency to be able to move them from one level to another. But overall, with the consistency of these funds, I see that in the next 3 years, we will be able to cover a substantial miles, to coverage within that period.
Well, we have to let you go now. I understand you have quite a schedule ahead of you, but I recall that there was a time you were briefing Nigerians on a daily basis. The presidential the task force on COVID-19, what a period then. And maybe sometime later we'll get a chance to sit down and talk about the learnings from there and how we've been able to improve on our healthcare delivery. But I'd like to thank you so much, Director, Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, Federal Ministry of Health, Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed. Thank you for your time and wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, Nigeria is on the verge of a new Chief Justice, and well, there are lots of issues on her table already. So we'll take a look at those issues and what you should be concerned about. Stay with us.
Welcome back. This is still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. And now we're turning our attention to the judiciary. We know the urgent need already to reform, reposition, and of course, restore the judiciary. I call this the 3 R's, which is very important if we want to move forward and develop as a nation. Well, the last hope of the common man is the judiciary, as they always say. And now Justice Kudirat Kekereekun will be taking over as the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, of course, pending her confirmation at the Nigerian Senate. So there's a lot about this issue and what will the difference, of course, that she'll be bringing to the table to ensure that this sector is reformed. We have in the studio joining us today Mr. Wahab Shitu. He's the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. It's interesting to know woman power. Of course, I'll support the fact that this is a woman, and probably that's why this segment was left for me to handle. She'll be the second person, if she is confirmed by the Senate, she'll be the second person taking over after Miriam Mukhtar, who we know handled this position also in the past. What does this mean for the judiciary? What do you think the difference will be bringing, the difference she'll be bringing to the table, of course, if she is confirmed?
Well, it is not just a woman that is coming in as the next Chief Justice of Nigeria, but a stellar woman.
Exactly.
A woman of high discipline, high integrity, a woman that is incorruptible. And when I say this, it is not patronizing at all. Every lawyer, every judge, everyone who is familiar with the administration of justice in Nigeria knows the reputation of my Lord, Honorable Justice Kudirat Kekereekun. Stella, no nonsense, judicial officer with unblemished service records. This is one judicial officer who has seen it all. He started from the magistracy as a senior magistrate in 1989. He was in the High Court here. She was in the High Court here, Lagos. And her reputation was stellar. Everybody, any lawyer appearing before Honorable Justice Kudirat Kekereekun must be well prepared. Because you know that she is knowledgeable. She will not tolerate nonsense from anyone. You cannot even attempt to corrupt her. Her demeanor does not even give that kind of nonsense. And she has zero tolerance for corruption. So that we are having a judicial officer of such pedigree at this point in time, I say congratulations to Nigeria. Because he's going to sanitize, his lordship is going to sanitize the system. He's going to infuse the system with high ethical standards. Every judicial officer must sit up. Every lawyer must sit up. Every stakeholder in the administration of justice must sit up. Enter his lordship, Honorable Justice Kudirat Kekereekun, the stellar, no-nonsense judicial officer who is knowledgeable and who is set to reform our judiciary. I have high hopes. Don't leave room for that. And no one is perfect as a human being, but we know as lawyers that she is an epitome of these core values that I've illustrated. And she insists on standards around her.
So going forward, are we going to see situations?
She mentioned okay. Aloma Mukhtar, Honorable Justice Aloma Mukhtar, the other female justice. That female former CJ too had that kind of reputation. And you saw, even to the extent, Aloma Mukhtar, the son, who is now a senior advocate, John Majiagbe, applied as a senior advocate during her tenure. He wasn't given. Not because he was not qualified. She does not want to see any impression that she will utilize her position to favor somebody around her. No. The son only became senior advocate after her tenure. So you will not see any form of judicial favoritism around Honorable Justice Kekereekun.
And just before you come in, so are we saying going forward that these leakages that we see, because we're going to what? Politics is coming.
Yes.
There's an election coming. We're going to see this election go all the way to Supreme Court because that seems like the culture here. Are you saying on good authority that we're going to see parties appear in courts on the final day with palpable tension because they don't know where it's swinging? Is that what should be expected? Because
that is what should be expected. And anyone who tries to subvert the system will be shown the exit door. Because this is a new sheriff in town.
Mr. Shitty, we've talked a lot about corruption,
yes,
but let's also talk about the other things in the judiciary. Allow me to list the judicial appointments, conflicting judgments, abuse of interim injunctions. We've seen this court will say this, oh, this one rules over it, and then it becomes a problem even within those affected. And we talk about discipline, accountability. Jeffrey just talked about election petitions and all of that. So there will be a lot of things going on in the 4 years that she'll be steering this ship. And the first 6 months of it, which aspect do you think she should focus on, apart from corruption, that will make a difference in the judicial system?
She will focus on all those areas you have listed and more. And the expectation is that she will receive cooperation from her brother justices. The expectation is that lawyers and the bench and all stakeholders will cooperate with her. She cannot do it alone. But when you know that there's a new orientation, a new beginning, and you know that it cannot be business as usual, then everybody will sit tight. I expect everyone who is interested in an effective and efficient justice delivery system will cooperate with this new sheriff in town in order to ensure that public confidence is restored. There are a few areas. You spoke about judicial appointments. We expect her to, in line with her reputation, to ensure that henceforth all judicial appointments are merit-driven. I'll be disappointed if this is not so. My expectation is that that will be so. You also mentioned abuse of interlocutory and ex parte orders by some few judges.
Yes.
I don't like the idea of tying the judiciary with a general brush, because I can tell you our judiciary parades some of the best, not only in West Africa, in Africa, in the Commonwealth, and even in the world. Forget about, attempts by some people. Nigerians are very critical. But we have the best brains here in the judiciary. We have elements who are committed to reforming the process. It's only a few bad eggs. Those few bad eggs will be fished out, not only in the bench. So my further agenda is that she should activate and accelerate the disciplinary enforcement mechanisms at the level of the bar and at the level of the bench.
Let me quickly make
because
this point.
She's not just the Chief Justice of the Federation. She also will be presiding over the National Judicial Council.
Right.
And all other agencies in charge of the administration of justice. She's the head. Not only the judicial head, but also the administrative head. She will set the standard. She will set the template. And I'm very optimistic that she will not even soil her name at this stage. She didn't soil her name.
Senior Advocate,
she did not soil her name as a magistrate.
No, clearly.
She did not soil her name as a High Court judge. She did not soil her name as a Court of Appeal justice.
Right.
She did not. She has never soiled her name even as a Supreme Court justice. You can't see any scandal around Honorable Justice.
So, Senior Advocate, you're big on this
yes.
Corruption bit, which is very important.
Yes.
Because I think it was in 2020 when the ICPC said that 9.4 billion naira was paid as bribe for justice in the judiciary. 9.4 billion naira over the span of 2 years from the ICPC's report that time. That's a lot of money, Senior Advocate, and you'll agree with me. We've had judges saying lawyers have tried to bribe them. Some of them have said it in public, some behind the scenes. So clearly, as you say that she's incorruptible,
yeah.
We have people that are collecting this money on a daily basis. 9.4 billion, and that's 2020. Imagine with inflation and the cost of living right now, what that figure will be. We wait to see what ICPC will put up. So I want us to speak to this issue, Senior Advocate. You said a few bad eggs. 9.4 billion naira is not little money.
There's no lawyer who is worth his salt, or a judicial officer worth his salt, is our sort that will support corruption.
So why would a lawyer approach a judge to bribe? And when you say she's corruptible, what makes her different?
She's incorruptible.
Sorry, when you say she's incorruptible, pardon me. So what makes her different? Have you had instances where she's been approached, you know of, and she said, no, I'm not going to take it?
You cannot even approach her.
Do you know anyone who has tried to approach her and she said, no, I don't want to take it?
You cannot even think of it. You understand what I'm saying? I'm just discussing someone who has been around for quite a long time. We all know her. We all know Honorable Justice Kudirat Kekereku. You can't go before her and say you want to offer her a bribe. You understand me? Apart from coming from a respectable background and pedigree, you understand me? She values her reputations seriously. Even staff around there will tell you, don't mess up with her. Don't try it, or else you go to jail. That's the kind of person who's coming in now as the Chief Justice of the Federation. So stellar discipline, integrity driven, no nonsense. That's what Justice Kudirat Kekereku. And in spite of all of this, she's civil. She's civil. She's not brash. Even when you appear before her, you will not even know the direction she's going to go. When you see her demeanor, you understand me? Certain judicial officers, through their conduct, demeanor, you will know that maybe they are supporting this side or this side. You will not know.
Okay, senior advocate.
She has a very a demeanor that you cannot predict.
I know there are people like that at the end of the day.
Yes, that's the kind of.
And it's quite commendable. You have been in that space, and you've seen.
I've been around for 36 years.
So you're a member of the Union, so we cannot debate what you know.
Yeah, no, yes. I'm saying it authoritatively. So and I challenge anyone. The bar or the bench.
To the contrary.
To the contrary. I challenge. This is a public challenge. Okay. Nobody can fault our integrity.
Senior Advocate Situ has put out a challenge. Anybody who can take it on is welcome.
Let anybody who come forward to say, I've attempted to bribe his lordship.
So
nobody can say that.
So let's help our Lord Justice on this particular one. She's walking into a time when the approval rating of the judiciary is not at the best. I know you don't like to paint with the entire brush, but you talked about perception. So that is a perception as much as we can see, especially the fallout of what happened during the election and all of the issues that we're trying to grapple with. So in going forward, let's begin with the bench. Some of the very first things you expect her to do, because you talked about what you're saying is our body language will not even make you approach her. Remember a former president whose body language we were scared of. By the end of 8 years, we're wondering what was this all about at the end of the day. Now we have another that is heading an arm of government who, according to you, is strong body language that is a deterrent already to anybody who wants to mess up.
Yes.
So the judges, when we have all of this conflicting judgment, ex parte being granted recklessly, what should she do beyond what some people consider just a tap on the wrist? Oh, you're not going to be promoted in 2 years or 3 years, but the person is still on the bench. What can be done? Because the judiciary, just like every other arm of government, needs to send a strong signal that something has changed. What will be that signal beyond her reputation?
Well, I expect her that we set guidelines. She will set the ground rules for all categories of judicial officers. And she will ensure that cases of corruption, that borders on corruption in discipline or impunity, are speedily dealt with. You understand me? When you report, provided you are armed with your evidence, she will insist that she will not spare anyone. Read my lips. Who is found guilty of a breach of ethical standards or corruption. First of all, she will set the ground rules. And, or again, I've said it earlier, she will lead by example. If she says you should not be corrupt, you will not see her corrupt. If you say don't take, you will not see her take. You understand what I'm saying? So, and again, she's going to be, I expect his lordship to be more reform-minded. She has a template. We have the National Judicial Summit, spearheaded by another no-nonsense attorney general, Prince Latif Fagbemi, who's well grounded. There's a summit earlier on. The document is available. So I expect her to implement all the recommendations emanating from that summit and insist on judicial integrity, judicial accountability, judicial discipline. I expect him to reform the Supreme Court so that cases are speedily heard. You know, we have a full complement. She's coming in at a time when the Supreme Court has a full complement of 21 justices. It has never happened before like that. For a long time, the Supreme Court has been overwhelmed in terms of limited number of justices. Now we have a full house. So I expect her to walk through several panels, to constitute several panels to deal with the issue of prompt delivery of justice. And then, you know, in the Supreme Court, one of the problems is getting earlier dates. You see cases dragging on unnecessary adjournments. The
politicians get access easily.
Well, again, that's another thing. Politicians cannot penetrate her. And let me also send a warning to the political elite. It's not going to be business as usual under my Lord. Anyone who wants to go to jail should attempt to go and bribe her. If you want to go to jail. Mind you, you've had a lot of scandal before around some judicial officers. Have you ever had anything scandal around Honorable Justice Kekereko? It's not possible. It's not possible because she's well bred, disciplined, and so she's going to lead by example. Again, this abuse of expertise orders that you see, she's not going to take this decision alone. But we know we have disciplinary structures, disciplinary mechanisms in the judiciary. So what I expect her to do is to improve upon all these disciplinary mechanisms available. The National Judicial Council is likely to be much more proactive, much more, will deal speedily more with cases now of corruption. And then, you know, when the bench senses the standards, the bar will follow. The bench, in terms of superiority, the bench clearly is the superior partner. So when you see the head of the judiciary, setting standards, leading by example, and enjoying the cooperation, and you cannot get to the level of the Supreme Court as a justice if you are lacking in moral and ethical standards. Those are people who have seen it all. So when they see that, I expect a lot of cooperation from the broader justices in the Supreme Court, even in the Court of Appeal, the High Court, the Federal High Court. Mind you, this is one judicial officer who has gone through all this gamut. So she's aware of the challenges in every area.
And I hope you know that she should know there are people that are already planning to make sure she fails. What does she have as a plan for those who want to sabotage her work? What do you suggest she should have as a plan? When I'm speaking
like this about Honorable Justice Kudirat Kekereko, my assumption and my belief, my optimism, is that elements around her, our brother justices, are equally impeccable in terms of credentials. And when they now know that they can find support in the leadership, they'll be encouraged more to ensure that the proper thing is done. And the lawyers there too, and those who have access, who make use of the justice delivery system, should ensure that they cooperate with her so that the reforms she will be bringing to the table will be successful the way you and I expect.
When we talk about punishment, I know you listed some of the reforms that should be done in terms of making sure that judicial officers who are found culpable are brought to book. But most times, we don't even see that taken seriously. So what are the serious steps that you know when we talk about severity of punishment on judicial officers' misconduct when it comes to this aspect? And we also know the issue of accountability and discipline. It has been a consensus. A consensus has been reached by stakeholders and discussants on trying to severely punish those found culpable, because if you do not take someone as example or scapegoat, then this will continue to happen. The rot in the judiciary will continue to happen.
First of all, people must be encouraged or must have the courage to report incidents of judicial abuses, indiscipline, and corruption.
Is there a platform?
There is a platform.
Okay.
You see, the bench, there are platforms for dealing with any errant lawyer. There are also platforms for dealing with any errant judge. Everybody has access to those platforms. All you need to do is to seek information. For instance, if a lawyer misbehaves, we have the disciplinary, panels. I mean, you can report to the MBA disciplinary committee. If a senior advocate, misbehaves, we have the committee dealing with that will deal with a senior advocate who misbehaves. And if a judge misbehaves, the NJC is there, and they sit regularly. The question the encouragement what I will urge people is that just don't raise frivolous allegations. Make sure that you have evidence, you have proof against it, because reputation is very important. You just don't levy allegations against individuals without proof. Once you have proof and you are sure-footed about your allegations, most times all of these vices that you talk about thrive because we keep silent. People do not want to speak. People do not want to come out. So it is not just Honorable Justice Kekere alone that will be able to satisfy this system. She requires the cooperation of everybody to succeed. We must ensure that we cooperate with her and then ensure that the reforms that she will bring into the table are actualized. So I expect elements around the Supreme Court to cooperate with her.
Right.
Elements around the Court of Appeal to cooperate with her. Elements around the High Court, Federal High Court, the magistracy to cooperate with her. I expect lawyers across board to cooperate with her so that reforms will succeed. Our image will continue to remain stellar, because without the cooperation of everybody, she cannot do it alone.
Senator,
but I know for sure that we have in place now an incoming CJN who is stellar.
All right, I can bet you that a lot of people will keep this video, this interview with you in the archives. So they can be referring to it as the days and the months go by. You've used Stella at least, in fact, I've lost count. And I think it speaks to your belief, your faith in her. But I want us to speak to specifics as well. And that's why I referenced the figure put out by the ICPC, 9.4 billion naira bribe for judgment. Just recently, a lawyer in Awka, Anambra State, put up a video. In fact, it was a very bold thing to do. And this lawyer was doing a video right there in the Magistrate Court 2, I think, in Awka, Anambra State. And there were the clerks of the Magistrate Court there. I don't know if you've seen that video. I imagine you've seen it. Saying that they were asking for 20,000 naira, in quote, bribe, before they pushed the case, which the magistrates had decided upon before they pushed it through. Instead of bail being free, they were asking for 20,000 naira. And then he says when he asked the clerks, they said that, well, it's the magistrate that insisted on the 20,000 naira being collected. Now, that is a real-life case, and that is one of many that we've heard. So while you can say the CJN is stellar incorruptible, you have these issues that are there staring us in the face, and they affect delivery of justice. Someone granted bail, it's meant to be free, but they're asking for 20,000 naira, according to that lawyer in Anambra State.
Thank you very much. Now, the CJN will be presiding over the Supreme Court, the #1 judicial officer. We have the President of the Court of Appeal, who is also presiding over the Court of Appeal judicial system. We have judges of State High Court and Federal High Court. We have chief magistrates and magistrates too. At these various levels, we expect all these leadership authorities to key into our agenda so that she'll be able to succeed. She cannot be everywhere. But what I can guarantee you is that there's going to be a remarkable improvement in justice delivery quality, in terms of adherence to ethical standards, in terms of restoring public confidence, in terms of dealing with judicial abuses and indiscipline, in terms of enhancing judicial integrity, in terms of enhancing the quality of judicial appointments, in terms of implementing all the various reforms emanating from the Justice Sector Summit, Reform Summit, in terms of leading by example, in terms of ensuring that judicial judgments of the Supreme Court, any of the courts, are not compromised, in terms of insulating the judiciary from political influences, and in terms of restoring public confidence. There will be a remarkable improvement, and the expectation is that all stakeholders in the administration of justice will cooperate with the incoming CJN so that she'll be able to deliver on her mandate. I'm very optimistic that the judiciary, which is a very critical instrument, will stabilize this our democracy. If the judiciary leads by example, and my expectation that it will do so under our watch, then our country will be sanitized. Then the common man will have more confidence in the justice delivery system. So I'm praying seriously and confident that his lordship's stellar reputation will not be stained.
Just quickly, Senior Advocate, this person said, when the senior advocates, and this is DG Bikoli on X, says, when the senior advocates tell you that this judge is corrupt or not, they know. This person claims that they, I think referring to lawyers, are the conduit pipes of the corrupt deals that are perpetrated in the judicial system. They know themselves. Quick word on this one, Senior Advocate.
Well, perception is quite different from proof. You see, we shouldn't make general statements. You understand me?
Yeah.
We should be able to support our assertions with proof.
All right.
I will not sit here to say we don't have elements in the judiciary who may be corrupt. But I will not sit here to say you are corrupt if I don't have evidence. So what I'm asking everyone who wants to make any statement to do is that arm yourself with evidence. Arm yourself with proof.
So you're not explain tire. So you will not explain tire. There's a saying that if you don't have evidence, you will explain and explain tire.
No, you see, reputation is very important.
All right.
What makes everyone a human being is your reputation. Remove reputation from any human being, the person is finished.
So there's a lot we will talk about.
Yes.
She's just taking over soon. So we're going to bring you back and talk about this, unbundling the whole structure. There's a lot.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wahab Shitsu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and we definitely, she has our support all the time. I'm sure there's people in the judicial sector.
I can see that you're excited that woman is coming on board.
Woman power
is coming on board.
Of course,
and a stellar woman.
And I'm sure she'll make us
proud. The next one is a female president.
Exactly. You know, we know how to do the magic and make things different, so I'm sure she will be a positive outcome. Yes. All right, but that's it on the show today. Thank you so much for watching Morning Brief today. We'll definitely see you again tomorrow. I'm Anne Nwawadu.
And I'm Jeff Rosama. Thank you for watching.
I'm just sign off for everybody since you know how to do the magic. I'm Karen Sunrise Daily is next. Hard.